Good evening and welcome to Global Lens News. I'm Sadia Afzal. Somewhere between headline chaos, social media megaphones, and an endless stream of self-congratulation, Donald Trump seems to have found himself in a rather awkward position, loudly insisting he's still the king, while more and more people are showing up just to say, no, actually, you're not. Across parts of the United States and even pockets of Europe, the No Kings protests have been gaining traction. The name itself is almost too perfect because it cuts right to the heart of the criticism. The message is simple. This isn't a monarchy, no matter how often Trump talks like it is. And let's be honest, the optics are hard to ignore. You have got protesters holding signs that read democracy, not dynasty, while Trump continues to frame himself as the only one who can fix everything, as if the Constitution were just a minor inconvenience he could edit between golf rounds. Now, Trump's popularity hasn't exactly fallen off a cliff. It's more like a slow, steady leak. Still significant, still loud, but undeniably losing pressure. Polls over time have shown fluctuations, but what's more telling is the shift in tone. There were a time when his dominance over the Republican base felt almost absolute. Now there is more hesitation, more fractures, and more people quietly stepping back and saying, maybe this isn't the winning formula anymore. And that's where these protests come in. They are not just about Trump, the person. They're about Trump, the idea. The idea that leadership should revolve around one individual. The idea that loyalty to a person matters more than loyalty to democratic institutions. The idea that losing an election is just optional. Protesters are not gathering because they think Trump is unusually powerful. They're gathering because they think he acts like he should be. The No Kings message resonates especially because of how Trump has approached power. Whether it's his repeated claims about election fraud, his attacks on the judiciary, and his tendency to label any criticism as fake, the pattern is clear. If something doesn't go his way, it's not just wrong, it's illegitimate. That's not exactly textbook democracy. That's closer to a ruler who expects applause, not accountability. And then there's Europe, watching from across the Atlantic. Many see Trump less as a political figure and more as a cautionary tale. In several European cities, smaller solidarity protests have echoed the same No Kings sentiment, partly out of concern that Trump-style politics, populist, confrontational, and personality-driven, could spread. Because here's the thing, Trump doesn't just influence American politics. He exports a style, a brand, a kind of political theater where facts are flexible, norms are negotiable, and volume often beats substance. And sure, some supporters see that as strength, but critics, they see it as chaos dressed up in a red tie. Now, let's talk about the protesters themselves. Who are they? Not some shadowy, coordinated force, despite what certain narratives might suggest, but a mix of ordinary people, students, activists, professionals, even disillusioned conservatives. What unites them isn't necessarily a single policy position. It's a shared discomfort with how Trump approaches power. They want accountability. They want institutions to matter again. They want elections to be accepted, not litigated endlessly until the outcome changes. And perhaps, most importantly, they want a political culture where disagreement doesn't automatically turn into demonization. Radical, right? Of course, Trump being Trump, criticism tends to slide right off, or rather, it gets absorbed and repurposed. Protests become proof of persecution, falling poll numbers become rigged surveys, legal troubles become witch hunts. It's a strategy that's oddly effective. If you can convince people that every system is broken, then you never have to admit that you might be part of the problem. But even that strategy has limits, because at some point, people start noticing the pattern. If everything is always unfair, maybe, just maybe, the issue isn't everything else. And this is where the sarcasm almost writes itself. Trump often talks about strength, yet spends an extraordinary amount of time insisting he's being treated unfairly. He portrays himself as a winner while simultaneously arguing that every loss doesn't count. It's a bit like a referee blaming the scoreboard. The No Kings protests tap into that contradiction. They're not just rejecting Trump, they are rejecting the entire idea that one man should dominate the political system to such an extent that disagreement feels like rebellion. Because in a democracy, disagreement isn't rebellion, it's the point. What makes this movement particularly interesting is that the pushback isn't just loud, it's persistent. It's not tied to a single event or controversy. It keeps resurfacing, adapting, and evolving. That suggests something deeper than just opposition to one candidate. It suggests a broader anxiety about the direction of politics itself. And Trump, for better or worse, has become the symbol of that direction. Now, will these protests alone change the political landscape? Probably not overnight. Trump has survived controversies that would have ended most political careers several times over. If resilience were an Olympic sport, he would at least make the podium. But protests don't need to be decisive, to be meaningful. They shape narratives. They signal shifts. They remind people that support isn't unanimous, that power isn't absolute, and that even the loudest voices can be challenged. In a way, the No Kings message is less about Trump and more about everyone else. It's a reminder that democracy isn't something you passively watch. It's something you actively defend. Sometimes that defense looks like voting, sometimes it looks like reorganizing, and sometimes it looks like standing in a crowd with a sign that says, in essence, "We don't do crowns here." So where does that leave Trump? Still influential, still controversial, still very much in the conversation, but perhaps no longer untouchable in the way he once seemed. Because the louder he insists on his dominance, the more people seem willing to push back, and not quietly either. After all, if there is one thing history tends to show, it's that when someone starts acting like a king in a place that prides itself on having none, the crowd eventually has something to say about it. This is Sadia Afzal for Global Lens News.